And then you stop questioning the reality because you're constantly in survival instinct. You don't ask the very profound question that any child is asking. I remember when I was, I think, 7 years old, I had a friend and we were sitting in a room playing. And then I said to my friend, let's try to imagine nothing. And we couldn't. Every time we would close our eyes, we would either see something completely black or completely white, because our minds were incapable of imagining nothing. And we started laughing. And when grown-ups see that, they don't understand it, but we were posing one of the most important philosophical questions. Because if there is something, it needs to be nothing. What is that? What is nothing? And when you look at the world of appearances, you need to understand, in order to experience something, there needs to be nothing in between. So when you listen to music, between notes, there's nothing. Otherwise, you wouldn't hear melody. You wouldn't experience thoughts if there wouldn't be gaps between the thoughts. So this nothingness is the key to realization. Because at some point, when you start accepting your mind, when you accept the human conditions, when you accept that you're miserable, when you accept that you're desperate, when you accept that you're frustrated, when you accept all of that, suddenly you calm down and the gaps between the thoughts become wider. And at some point, there are no thoughts. Only awareness is left, nothingness. And that's the moment of liberation. This is the realization. The Hindus call it moksha or samadhi. The Japanese call it satori. It's a moment of enlightenment, when the lightning strikes and you suddenly realize, oh, all appearance is deductible except the awareness that is having the experience. Experience constantly change. So, physical experience change, but awareness never. Yes.
So Julian, question: the enlightenment happens all the time, but so for people understand the enlightenment, also I'm gonna give an example, is when you see your traumas from outside with no pain, just with not with joy, but with like to understanding that was a lesson for you to learn. That's an enlightenment.
That's a very helpful way. You could say you're being enlightened every day, because every day, if you allow it, your consciousness is expanding. Yeah, this is what you spoke about in the beginning. Yeah, to get rid of those borders, to expand those borders of the idea of I, or the idea of self. You're constantly expanding that until it includes everything. That's the key. So we have these small enlightenments every day.
Yes.
Where you're being offered expansion, but the ego refuses the expansion. That is what you need to figure out. Because the ego believes that there are evil events, bad events. And then you're not open to what those events are trying to teach you, what they're trying to make you wake up to. And I remember that for me, the realization came through loss, through things being taken away. And from the ego perspective, loss is bad. But only illusion was being taken away from me. Nothing real was being stolen. Only false identity, unhealthy attachments, addictions I didn't need. All of that was taken away. But when it's taken away, you feel like you're being robbed of your identity. Exactly. Because the identity is the prison. So at some point you are beyond identity. And that is an enlightened state of being, is to not act from identity, not from conditions that exist in space-time. You don't act from your nervous system. You don't act from your mind. You don't act from your traumas. You don't act from your conditionings. You are beyond those conditions. But you need to figure that out. But as long as you wrestle with the conditions, you can't transcend them. You perpetuate them. So if you're trying to gain control, if you're trying to fix yourself, you're trying to repair yourself, you're still thinking something is wrong with the experience, something is wrong with the human, but it's not. It's a learning hologram. If you will, the sphere of humanity, this, if you could call it a subcosmos within the cosmos, this human experience is a free will experiment. And the only reason we have negativity is so we have free will, because negativity offers you free will. Because if there would be no negativity, the only thing that you could choose is your God self. So we made a free will experiment where we separate from our God self, where we give ourselves amnesia, so we have choice. And why do we do this? So we can use the physical experience as a mirror and achieve individualization. Wisdom through experience. And this is what happens. The experience offers you self-knowledge. If someone, for example, is afraid and they're practicing boxing and they have a boxing fight, when they're in that fight, they'll learn a lot about themselves. So they're using the physical experience to gain in awareness. And that is the key. You're all gaining in awareness. You're using the physical experience as a catalyst to become more self-aware and individualized. But at some point you have done this enough, and then the return call is sounded back to the higher intelligence that is beyond negative and positive. And we suffer because we are rejecting that call. We're saying, I have regrets, I have shames, I have guilt, I need more human experience because I need to fix things. A master doesn't fix shit. A master accepts.
And then when you drag for many years one story, you drag it, like happens to me, there, and you don't let it go. You're not gonna have a space for enlightenment, because this is retaining you, the angry, the hate, the all this kind of stuff that suppress you to not letting you go to a higher level.
And the human can't go to a higher level. That's important to understand. You see, enlightenment is not about improving the human. Enlightenment is about ending the human existence. Remembering who you are, because none of you are human. You have a human suit, you have a human appearance. And you identified with it. That's why you have the story in the head. I'm like, I don't know, I'm like 80 kilos heavy, I have blonde hair, I have blue eyes. Arbitrary. Completely arbitrary. So what keeps you really limited, again, are the beliefs. Right? So the beliefs is, for example, when I have a trauma, the belief is, oh, the trauma is bad. And the human, because of the human subjectivity, cannot see it from a higher dimensional perspective. And the higher dimensional perspective would be liberating. So what do we need to do? Sit in meditation, accept everything within the human, the whole psyche, all the frustrations, all the trauma, and accept that we can't accept it. And then at some point, your intuition will kick in. That means your higher self will come in and starts explaining to the human why you can't let go. So your higher intelligence is going to explain to you why, for example, a trauma was a gift. What the trauma was teaching you, for example, about compassion, about wisdom, about ownership or sovereignty. And then it's turned into wisdom. And the moment it's turned into wisdom, the negativity drops away and your energy increases and you become more psychic until you are beyond human. But it cannot be done with this modern psychotherapy way of thinking. People need fixing. There is pathology. There is no pathology. It's nonsense. There's nothing wrong with people. There's nothing wrong with traumas. There's nothing wrong with being upset. But if you want to transcend it, you cannot do it with the mind. You cannot do it with the human programming because it's too limited. So you basically need to give your higher self the permission to intervene on your behalf. But when you have amnesia, you don't even know that a higher self exists. You don't ask, right? And there are many people who ask me why, for example, a higher force doesn't intervene on their behalf, because free will is divine. And even God doesn't override your free will, because free will is also the will of God. So even God wouldn't override your free will. And if you attach to guilt and shame and unloving beliefs and want to keep that identity, you can't be liberated. So it's not about fixing you. It's about accepting that you don't need fixing.
So I have a question before
Yes.
you go on. You were talking about higher self, and I was just thinking about when I was young, and I was very religious. I'm not religious now, you know that, but I used to pray a lot, right? And so, as I was taught, and I would pray to God for whatever help or whatever I needed. Essentially, I would ask God
to pass a math test.
whatever I needed. Okay,
Yeah.
so I mean, essentially, I had a difficult childhood, as you know, and I prayed a lot for help out of that situation. But in general, people pray. People who are religious pray, and they ask for things. Now, we've had this conversation in private, but I thought it would be a good time to share that with everyone as to like why your prayers sometimes go unanswered and why does it seem like sometimes they are.
I love that question.
Right. And that is so powerful because and again, I don't care if people believe me. Find out for yourself if what I'm saying is true. So for me, having psychic contact is something that happens daily. So if I have a question, I might sit down in meditation, and then enlightened masters, they're visiting me, and I can see them as a holographic projection, and they start talking to me on certain topics. And when it came to the topic of prayer, what they said is the following thing. They said, when people pray, they are so noisy, they are so full of themselves that they can't be filled. So we don't answer their calls because they're not capable of receiving. But when someone becomes very quiet, very still, then we get interested because that someone can be taught. Why do they say that? Because people are praying for a better life for their ego. I want a car so I can go anywhere I want because I want my ego to be more comfortable. I want 10 millions in the bank so I don't have to worry about money because I want my ego to be more comfortable. I want to be super handsome so I can get all the sexual attention that I want because I want my ego to be more comfortable. But what they're not asking for is free me from the ego.
Yes.
And this is why their calls are not being answered, because the masters know that someone who is asking for